had visitors from Minnesota come down here and say they were since 20 it was really cold when they left, but we welcome you here to Oklahoma City once again. Now, before I get started, the Park Service is committed to your safety, so what I'd like to do is have a real quick safety message before we get going. And that's that when you are walking around the grounds, be mindful of where you step because some of the flagstone and places can be a little uneven in places, especially right here. It's separated just a little bit, grass is growing in between. So if you just watch your steps as you're walking around here, we would love for you to stay safe and enjoy your experience. One other thing you can do is when you access the field of empty chairs, the chains are down on either end towards the gates of time. And if you access where the chains are down, that'll be a lot safer for you. But on that note, what I would like to do is I'd like to start my program off with this cliche that a lot of people have heard many times before. And it goes like this. It started off as a day like any other. And truthfully, April 19th, 1995 was your average, everyday spring morning right here in downtown Oklahoma City. Even across the whole metro area. People from all over town were waking up. They were having a shower, brushing their teeth, combing their hair, getting around for work. I know a lot of people had to have that morning cup of coffee as they're watching the news or getting their breakfast. Now, a lot of people had kids, and they had to get their children up out of bed and get them around for the day, feed them breakfast, and get them off to school. Some students may have ridden the bus, some parents may have dropped them off. Once the things got homeward done, and the kids were taken care of and dropped off at school, the adults may have had to take them to places. And one of those places in Oklahoma City was called the Alfred P. Murrah Building, and that stood just a few feet from where we are sitting today. When they got to that building, they needed to park their cars, so where we're sitting today was actually a parking lot. So a few visitors and a lot of employees like to park their cars in this parking lot, especially under the shade of this beautiful American elm tree that we are sitting underneath. Because a lot of times in Oklahoma, the sun gets really hot in the summer, and the shade of the tree makes that car just a little more manageable to get to afterwards. Well, after they parked their car, they got up and they walked across the street. The street was actually located where you see the reflective pool today. As they're crossing the street, they had to watch out for a few different vehicles, other personal cars, even city buses, delivery trucks, because this was a downtown business area. But one vehicle they had to watch out for at the time was a moving fire truck, because this tall building over here to our west is the Regency Tower apartment complex. And people did move in and out of that building on occasion. So that's why in that morning, right around 9 a.m., when there was a yellow rider truck in this area, not too many people paid too much attention. And that yellow rider truck just pulled right up next to the Murrah building. A man got out, shut the door, and he walked away. But 2 minutes later, at 9:02 a.m., this city, this state, and our nation was forever changed by a single act of terrorism. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this memorial that we are sitting in today represents our nation's commitment to peace and our commitment to the sanctity of life. Because there are very few events in the past 25 years that have changed us and rocked our perceptions. And one of those events was the April 19th, 1995 bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building right here in downtown Oklahoma City. The resulting deaths of 168 men, women, and children, forever left scars on their family members from having their loved ones taken from them in a very brutal fashion. But along with those family members are countless survivors who still bear their own physical and emotional scars from having their lives impacted in this event. And those scars are shared with all of us sitting here today, with the general public, because this was a very, very public attack. How many of us here today actually remember that morning? We can keep the hands up if the younger visitors can look around. This is one of those events we remember. This is an event that is ingrained in our memory, much like the JFK assassination was a few years back in the generation before mine. Much like the 9/11 terrorist attacks for a newer generation is ingrained in our memory. Oklahoma City is ingrained in our memory as well. And we do not want to forget what happened here that morning. Especially, we want to remember those who were killed, those who survived, and those who were forever changed. So we created the outdoor symbolic memorial here at the Oklahoma City National Memorial and Museum to remember those groups of people. And the way we want to bring this to you is through a program we like to call Between the Gates of Time. And that is where I'd like to start my program, is at the namesake. And it is these two large concrete and metal structures at either end of our grounds. These are the gates of time, and they are the front doors to our memorial. And as you come through the gates, you will leave around to a silent space. And that silent space allows you to see the hustle and the bustle of the city behind. Come down here, on these calm and these peaceful memorial grounds, a place of change and a place of healing. If you look on either end, you will see a timestamp, 9:01 to the east and 9:03 to the west. This is the minute before and the minute after the 9:02 explosion. 9:01 goes a step further because it speaks of the 9:01 being the last moment of our innocence as Americans. Because at 9:01, when we thought of terrorism, we thought it was something happening far away and far overseas. It didn't even have a foreign face attached to it. But in Oklahoma City, we learned all that was wrong. We learned we could be attacked when we felt the safest, right here in the heartland of America. And even worse, we found out we could be attacked by one of our own boys, an American citizen. So at 9:02 a.m., we were changed. We had the blood of terrorism on our own hands. But then we had to move forward. We had to pick up the pieces and dust ourselves off. We had to let the healing process begin. And that healing process began at 9:03, which is marked on our western gate. That first moment of the healing process is when the grief was overwhelming, when the shock was overwhelming. And that healing process has continued, and it still goes on today. The healing process will never end. For those of us sitting here today who have lost somebody close to us, we understand that sense of deep loss. We understand the overwhelming grief. But we also understand years down the road, we still remember those loved ones taken from us. And even though we are living our everyday lives again, we may shed a tear for that loss, but we also may laugh at a funny memory, because those memories remain with us. And those memories remain here in this outdoor memorial grounds. And I will get back to those memories in just a brief moment, because I would like to expand on the moment of 9:02, that moment of change. Because we remember that change in the small body of water in the middle of our memorial grounds, which we call the reflecting pool. The reflecting pool does span the area where Northwest 5th Street ran once in the city, that ran right next to the building. Today, that water reflects that change. You may notice reflections of trees, reflections of buildings and parts of our memorial. But you also may notice reflections of people. And if you were to walk close enough and look straight down, you would be looking at your own reflection. And the reflection you are looking at is a reflection of somebody who has been forever changed by terrorism. Because terrorism has affected us all. We can talk and all agree on the awareness of terrorism, on the differences in security as a result of terrorism. But the one thing I cannot talk to you about is the personal changes in your life as a result of these terrorist attacks. And that is my invitation to you, as you walk around here today, to reflect on your personal lives and how you have been changed by the events of Oklahoma City almost 16 years ago. Now getting back to those memories, because the first group we remember were those who were killed. And directly across from our reflecting pool is a large grassy area that was once the footprint of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building. And today it is the field of empty chairs. And there are 168 empty chairs for the 168 people that lost their life on that morning. These chairs are located in 9 different rows, corresponding to a floor of the Murrah Building because it was 9 stories tall. Each chair on the glass base has a name etched in the front. So the chair is specific to that person, and that person's chair is located on the row in which they worked or visited. You may notice in the middle of the area the chairs are denser towards the middle part of the field and less in the edges. Where you see more chairs, there is more damage to the physical structure of the building, and less chairs, there is less damage to the physical structure of the building. This pattern helps us recreate the glass cavity so we can see the damage left behind. There's also 19 smaller chairs located amongst the larger ones. 19 young, innocent lives. 19 children